All right, good evening. We will bring this June 23rd special City Council meeting to order. This is our budget workshop meeting. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do.
All right, thank you. What's our first item on the agenda, please?
Our first item will be agenda item number 2, which is invocation given by Mayor Greenberg, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the American and Texas flags.
All right. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for the opportunity to come and meet as a council and citizens alike to discuss the things that are going on in our city, to make good decisions that can make us proud to live here. I pray that you'll guide the discussions tonight, that you'll let our ears be open, that if there's questions that needs to be asked, we can ask them. Thank you very much for the work that has gotten into this council meeting so that we can know our city finances and how best to run this budget workshop. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
God bless Texas.
Next item, please.
Next will be agenda item 3, which is public comment, and I've received several requests to address the council. First being from Lisa Cross, address 113 Westminster Drive, and she would like to speak about sidewalks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a little nervous talking in front of y'all, but here we go. My name is Lisa Cross. I live at 113 Westminster, which is in Carrington Farms, north of 276, but on the west side of Rochelle Road. We are located 0.6 of a mile from the new middle school number 4, which is Raycow Middle School. And I have 2 sons, Elliot and Remington, that will be attending Raycow in the fall. So 25-26 school year, 6th and 8th grade respectively. Because we're less than a mile from the school, they will likely be walkers or bus riders. Unfortunately, that will require them to walk on Rochelle Road, and there are currently no sidewalks on Rochelle Road. The speed limit on Rochelle Road, north of Westminster, is 30 miles an hour. However, I regularly witness drivers well exceeding that speed limit. Additionally, since the completion of Gettysburg Extension and the infrastructure for 3 and 4 of the Technology Park in Rockwall, the traffic on Rochelle Road has increased by at least 300%. So I used to run 3 to 4 times a week on Rochelle Road. I do not feel safe doing so now. I will not walk on Rochelle Road. I will not walk the dog on Rochelle Road. I am worried about the safety of my boys and all of the other students in our development that will be walking or riding their bikes to and from school every day on this very busy street. I believe that the trip would be much less hazardous with the addition of sidewalks between the streets of Gettysburg and Westminster on Rochelle. And I respectfully ask for your consideration for the safety of our children. Thank you.
Okay. Next person will be Jessica Lunt, address 102 Abbey Lane, wishes to speak also on sidewalks on Rochelle.
Hello, my name is Jessica Lunt, 102 Abbey Lane, and I'm in the same neighborhood as Lisa. And I just would like to bring up that same conversation. I have been in communications with the principal at Raycow, however it's pronounced, and he has agreed with me that sidewalks are absolutely essential. They are a necessity. On either side of Rochelle, where there is no sidewalk currently, on one side it is a very steep ditch, a concrete ditch, and on the other side it is nothing but mud. There is not even a shoulder on either side of Rochelle. So there is really, truly zero possibility of the children walking from our neighborhood, like Lisa said, 0.6 of a mile across Rochelle to get to Raycow Middle School. They have already constructed sidewalks that go all the way to the middle school, starting at Rochelle, but there is absolutely nothing from our neighborhood over there. It is a tiny little strip that would just need to be constructed, and right now, as Lisa said, I used to go up and down Rochelle. I could go up and down Rochelle all day and see maybe 4 or 5 cars. I do not allow my children there anymore. My daughter, who will be speaking shortly, I won't allow her to cross that road, even with her older brothers. And so it is very important for the safety of our children that we have sidewalks there. Otherwise, and I've also talked to Principal Payne, and he said buses are not an option because we're within a mile of the school, so it's not even an option. So we would have to physically drive our children, which traffic's already gonna be crazy. And so that's all I have to say, and I just really hope that you guys will consider that. I kind of was told that it was Rockwall County, and then I was told it was Faith that was in charge, and Principal Payne is the one that suggested that I reach out to you guys, and that it's really a City of Fate property. So that's all I have to say, so thank you very much.
Okay, the next speaker will be Annie Mae Lunt, address 102 Abbey Lane, wishes to speak on sidewalks.
Hello, my name is Annie Lunt. I live on 102 Abbey Lane, which is just off the side of the Rochelle Road. I will be attending Raco Middle School, and I am so excited to have a school walking distance from my home. However, I have noticed how dangerous Rochelle Road has gotten, and unfortunately, Raco Middle School is built just across Rochelle. This means that me and other students would have to cross an extremely dangerous road twice a day just to get to and from school, which I definitely don't feel safe doing that. So in order to fix this, we would need to have a sidewalk and a crosswalk, which we don't currently have. I also used to be able to ride my bike on Rochelle and feel safe. However, since it's become more dangerous, I haven't been able to do so. I also often notice how common it is for the railings above the creek to be fallen over, which I notice because people have hit them. So in conclusion, I believe that we need sidewalks in order to cross the road safely, and I'm sure my fellow classmates would agree. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Steve Huffman, address 6824 West State Highway 66, which is to speak on council qualifications.
Thank you. Steve Huffman, 6824 West State Highway 66 in Fate. First of all, I've got the organizational chart from the City of Fate that shows the citizens of Fate at the top of the hierarchy of making progress in the city, then the mayor and city council, then boards and commissions, and then municipal judge, city attorney, city manager, city secretary. You are elected because the city believes that you can make good choices. We have a lot of doubters in the city. That's kind of embarrassing how they approach their doubts on social media especially. There was an op-ed piece today from a former mayor, Billings, who really excoriated the current council and does not have faith in you, and I disagree with all the things that he wrote in his paper wholeheartedly. I quote very quickly. He writes, his families across Texas plan vacations, etc. Councilors are deep into the budget season. He goes on to say Governor Abbott has already delivered real tax relief, signing into law significant property tax reductions for school districts and providing meaningful savings for all Texans, including our seniors. While the state is doing its part, it's up to local leaders to ensure that city budgets reflect conservative principles such as efficiency, transparency, upkeep of roads and parks, and support for public safety. He then goes in to say, and resisting pressure to cut essential services in order to satisfy special interest groups that don't even live in our city. Nobody is asking to cut essential services, and I don't think that there's any proof of any special interest group that don't even live in our city. This came up repeatedly during the election season. If there's no proof, I'm asking for those in the city who continue to push this agenda to stop. There is no secret mythical pact. There's no secretive cabal directing candidates, now council members, to be quiet. I don't think there's any proof whatsoever, and it's embarrassing again for the city to have to deal with this. He goes on, since 2013, various Fate city councils have kept the city tax rate among the lowest in Texas. Circumstances have changed since 2013. You may be in the position of having to raise some taxes. Things have changed. We've got what's called a retail apocalypse going on across the country. We've had a big thing happen over the weekend that may dictate some changes. So I think that this is a personal attack that's unfounded and kind of personal, but without any kind of backing or reason for being. He goes on. Today, the Fate City Council includes 4 members with limited financial or budgeting experience, and no, simply not being a numbers person does not qualify as fiscal leadership. This lack of experience could have serious implications for the quality of services our residents expect and deserve. Well, I have personal relationship with one council member who works with law firm budgeting on a daily basis. One other member has had extensive budgeting with the Dallas newspaper, so I don't know where this is coming from, but this is, the only purpose it serves is to put down the current council, not to assist, not to move us forward, and what was written is wrong. During the May 2025 campaign, several candidates proposed cutting approximately $700,000 from the city's budget. Again, prove the several part. A race to the bottom on city tax rates is counterproductive. Nobody is going for a race to the bottom. Nobody. You are dealing with what's been presented to you from previous mayors and councils. You're going to do the best you can. And most of you, he's trying to trash. You've been on the job for about 2 months. So I don't know why this needed to be written.
Well, thank you, Mr. Huffman. I don't want to cut you off.
right.
If you would like a closing statement to that,
Yes, I
please.
would. I think that no special consideration should be given to former mayors or council members or any other kind of group because they used to be a former something. I think you're all very well qualified to handle the budget for the city of Fate. You were chosen, you were elected to do that. And it is, again, embarrassing when we get newspaper articles written and published. Social media can be very assistive or it can be very toxic. Just want to let you know most people are on your side. So wanted to go ahead and share this and get this out in public that what was written is wrong and incorrect. And unless these people can provide proof of these allegations, they're meaningless and really don't deserve a place in public discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right,
and
next.
the last two did not want to speak. Andrew Darrow and Dana Darrow. Their address is 100 Abbey Lane. They did not wish to speak, but they wanted their support for the installation of sidewalks on Rochelle Road so that their child can safely walk to school. And that's all I have for that public comment item.
All righty. Thank you. What's next on our agenda, please?
So next, we will move to Agenda Item 4, which is a budget workshop, and that will entail a welcome and budget workshop objective. B is a budget snapshot and emerging pressures. C is a compensation study overview. D, recommended budget preview discussion. E, capital planning and long-term outlook. F, council department budget items discussions, which will include the council department draft budget overview, nonprofit and community organizations funding, and use of child safety fee funds from Rockwall County. And G, MDD sales tax bond for Fate Station Park. And H, wrap up and next steps.
All right. So, Michael, this is just a light presentation here, I'm guessing.
Yes, we'll run through. Our target time is 80 to 110 minutes, including council discussion, but we can, of course, go slower or faster, whatever you like. All right, so we'll have a presentation that will come up. Oh, Jennifer also, you may see this little thing on the top of your screen. So Jennifer is with us virtually somewhere on the internet out of Waco. So she is listening. If we need to ask a legal question or if it's not too deep, a legal question she can answer. She may ask to go in executive session if it's really something that she'd advise us. Otherwise, she is here and listening to us and with us. Okay, budget workshop, here we are. So the purpose, of course, is to really, we're here to gauge your opinions. We're watching for your reactions. We want to hear what you have to say. The full budget is going to be delivered on the 17th of July. And so you'll get a hard copy, you'll get access to a soft copy, and of course OpenGov, our budgeting software system. So all the different things start sending us questions and so forth. Some folks we found it, they really need to have the full budget before we start getting to making a lot of decisions. But we're going to continue the preview tonight. There's no process. As far as the process, there's no pressure to make decisions tonight. We are looking kind of for your reactions on different things. And we want to align and use that feedback in the final preparation of the budget. Okay. All right, so just kind of a snapshot and some emerging pressures. There's some good news. If you look at kind of our total revenue, that's kind of a breakdown of our revenue sources: property tax, sales, franchise, licenses and permits, and municipal court. And I know I was just talking about economic development with We've got a Roy City Council member, welcome, sir, in the audience, and former Mayor Megacy. We were talking a little bit about economic development and how it was a long time ago, and sales tax now really over that 4 million mark projected for next year, which is great. So licenses and permits kind of hovering around that 2.3. That's actually a little bit more than projected for this year as far as budget to budget. Actual, we may have more. But yeah, 19 million is what we're looking at for revenues, and compared to last year, or the current year we're in, which is about 17 million. The budget preparation on the back end, it changes every day. I think right now we're down 100, and I think we're in the red, 130,000, but we plan to make some tweaks to that, and we should have that figured out in the next few days. All right, so budget, kind of a snapshot of the budget and some of the pressures. Of course, staff. We have a small staff. We want to continue to have that small staff model, and so we're gradually growing the staffing. Our plan, of course, is, as we've done over the last decade, is to grow staffing on a per capita basis slower than the population increase. And so we're focusing on that. Of course, quality of the staff, that's a big deal. As far as you'll see some different proposals. Lee's going to jump into something here with our compensation study in a minute or two. Our focus has really been on DPS and roads, primarily. We take a best value approach to any additions that we want to do. I was kind of looking at it from, what can we get? And we're always thinking of the taxpayer like, okay, you're going to give us this, but what do you get for it? And so we're always looking at that best value, and all the departments are very good about that. Some inflationary still pressures, not so bad, not as bad as last year. And so we've still got some inflation impacts in some of our contracts and in pricing, but it's not as bad as it was. And then, of course, we always want to look for maintenance responsibility and make sure that we're looking forward, and that was things like the street. We saw the street replacement plan. We talked about how to do that. And it's just as far as focusing on what we've got. We'll get into more detail on that. Okay, Lee, you're up. Compensation study. We're going to talk about this one for a few minutes. Lee's got about 3 slides for us, and then we'll jump back into the main body of the presentation.
Yeah, sorry, that came quicker than I thought. So in the current year budget, funding was included to do a compensation market study, and we timed that so that we would get the results in time to incorporate them into the fiscal year 26 budget. We wanted to give y'all a little bit of history, a little bit of information about how the city's compensation is structured, and there is a policy decision that will have to be made as part of the budget process. But our compensation plan is divided into 2 plans currently. We have one plan for what we call general government, which is all the civilian employees, and then a separate plan for public safety, which the sworn public safety employees, and that's a step plan, which is standard for their industry, while the general employees are on a open range plan. Prior to this, we completed our last study in 2021 and implemented it in the budget for that year. And council set our targeted market position at wanting to be at 50% of market. So we have our comparable cities, which I'll show you in just a minute, and we wanted to be right in the center of that for the midpoint of the salary grades. And at that time in 2021, that was citywide, public safety and general employees. In 2023, we were having such a difficult time recruiting, especially on the police side. It's not just a Fate thing, that's a nationwide thing. It's just extremely competitive. There's more public safety jobs than there are police officers or people that want to be police officers. So we went ahead and did a market update just for DPS. And at that time, we changed their targeted market position to 90% of market. And that did seem to help quite a bit with recruitment. It's still very difficult, but that at least kind of kept us in the ballpark and in the running. Just to give you an idea of our benchmark cities, we looked at cities that are, of course, close to us geographically, similar with similar types of growth rate, and similar in size, and kind of on our side of the Metroplex. And this is pretty much the same group of cities that we used for the 2021 study. I think the only difference was, I think, adding Salina on the public safety side. But just wanted you to be aware and see what we're talking about when we talk about our market. So with the current study, we've maintained the 90% market position for DPS. We have gone ahead and separated their pay plan into police and fire. The departments are growing enough now. You know, we're really starting to treat them a little more like two separate departments, and they really are two separate markets as well when we recruit new officers. The cost for the implementation of their portion of the study is about $184,000 just in salary, and the little bit additional cost in benefits. It is just difficult to stay kind of caught up. I feel like Chief and I have talked about this. Every department's trying to one-up each other every year, and it's hard to stay up there. But this will put us in a pretty good position, especially on starting officer salaries and starting firefighters. On the general government side, and this is where we get into the policy question we're going to want you to answer. They did the study, they did it based on 50% market position, but they also did 70%. And so the decision is going to be, where do you want to put the general government targeted market position? And why did we do that? As Michael mentioned just now, we're keeping with our very tall, our small, tight staffing model. But what that means is we don't have a lot of, there's not layers, there's not depth on the general government side. And so when we're filling a vacancy, when you have a lot of departments that are 1, 2, 3 people, that's it. We can't really afford to hire non-experienced or non-municipal experienced people. We don't have time to train them up to do the job when that's the only position doing that job in the city. So we do, where we can, we hire experienced municipal people. And so that means we actually wind up hiring out a little bit out in the grade a little bit. I wouldn't say the majority of our hires are that, but we do it quite a bit. We just have to. If we went ahead and set that market position at 70%, that would better position, it's really about the hiring range, and that would better position that, and would also, I would hope, improve our pool. It would also help as far as whether we go 50 or 70%, how that affects current employees. For the majority of the people in the general government, it isn't going to change where they would, where their salary would be come October. It would help with the field employees. It raises the starting salary a little bit there, that starting range, and a lot of them are very new, so they fall into that. That is our, outside of DPS and in general government, the field employees is our highest area of turnover. So anything we could do to help retain those guys and kind of give them a path would be good, I think. And that's really all I have about the compensation plan. We don't expect y'all to make a decision on that tonight. We do have the 70% market plugged in right now to the draft budget, but just wanted to give y'all, like I said, a little bit of background and then answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Well, thank you. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, you gave us a list of the cities close by. What would you say the majority of those are, the 70 or the 50%?
Well, every city chooses their own market.
Right, but I would say out of the majority, like I said, the majority, would you think they were more towards the 70% or? Maybe I'm asking the question wrong.
Yeah, I can't answer that.
So-
They all define their own market, right? So
our market is not defined by some industry standard government job?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so then my question doesn't apply. Okay, thanks. The reason
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out if you were going to be a water employee in the city of Fate, or you went to the city of Royce City, would our ranges be comparable? And if they were comparable, do they go to 70% or 50%? I guess I'm not asking you if they're exactly the same, but
Yeah. Well, and I can't tell you where they each shake out. But, you know, currently our ranges are designed to be, so we're right in the middle. So of those 10 cities, half are above us, half are below us.
okay?
I wouldn't say on most positions, it's a huge swing, right?
Mark, let me ask, are you kind of asking if we're right in the middle of those, is that at the 50% or is that at the 70% mark?
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is if somebody here makes $5 to be in the water department, and somebody there makes $10 to be in the water department, but their pay range is much narrower, it matters. So I don't know how to make a decision of whether or not we're underpaid or overpaid as far as our people go, because we don't have a good idea of what those positions make. So is there any way we can get some of that information?
Yeah.
Okay,
And we
'cause it's just
can
hard,
put
I mean-
together some more information.
Look, I want to pay
Survey
people
data.
fairly, but if we're at 70% of the market value, I mean, in my job, for instance, we try to keep everyone at 100% of midpoint, right? Well, but those positions have a marketed, this is what that kind of position pays. I would think we'd have something like that in the industry that said, if you're a water employee, you make this kind of money. Maybe not, but maybe we can just get something that tells us a little bit more of how closely we are to the standard.
We can put something together
Okay.
from the survey data that the consultants did that will give you a little bit bigger picture, I guess, of the market and where we are and where we fall in it.
And I mean, if we're having trouble hiring people at the 50% range, obviously we probably need to go to the 70% range, but I'd still like to know what that
Yeah,
range is.
sure.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I'll step on the third rail and just ask the DPS question.
Okay.
When we did the 90% a few years ago, that was hiring for triple certified officers. I believe since we went to 90%, we've added the certification pays to that and all that allows bumps over and above that. So I guess my question would be, it's probably more of a policy question than anything, is do we still think 90% is, as we are transitioning our department from a single DPS to multiple two departments, does the 90%, is that still appropriate? Or as we're hiring more single cert focused people, is there an opportunity to lower that, but with the multiple certifications, reward people that are doing more?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, and let me kind of break that down a little bit. First off, I would say it's more common than not to have the certification pay. So most of these market cities also offer certification pay. The problem, I mean, triple certified's really, really hard. But even taking that aside, it is still just incredibly difficult to hire police officers. There's just not enough of them. Not enough people going into the field now, and so it's incredibly just competitive. And every city, every year, it feels like is hiking their pay, and you're just trying to keep up. So this would put our starting police pay, it's literally at 90%. There would only be one more in that group of cities that would be offering us more, or that would be offering more for a starting police officer. I think where that's important, because just like some of the other departments, it's still a small department. So it's not like you can bring them on and they've got to hit that ground running pretty quick, right? And one of the things that I think Chief is to be commended on is that even with all the difficulty in recruiting and hiring and all the flack he got over that sometimes, he never changed any, and I've seen chiefs do this before, but he never changed any of the standards, never lowered any of the standards. And I think that was important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a question of the quality. It's just more of a it's more of a strategy issue as far as what's appropriate. I would also probably encourage, I think you said the last survey we did there was 2 years ago, at least on the DPS side, because of the competitive market. It probably makes sense to do a salary survey this time of year every year, just to make sure we're in the ballpark and we can make smoother adjustments as opposed to a longer 2-year catch-up type period.
Okay, yeah.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Huffman.
Are cities able to offer signing bonuses for positions?
Yes. If there's a set policy, then they are able to do that. Where you see that most often is on the police or public safety side. And there's usually some type of, they commit to be here for a certain amount of time, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, we kind of know Plano is kind of the gold standard when it comes to the highest paid on there. And if other cities raise theirs, Plano's going to raise theirs. So that's going to affect the market. But other than salaries, how much do you think the new DPS building has done to draw in potentially new candidates for the future?
Yeah, no, I think that's big. And the fact that, so people we're trying to attract, they can come in, they can see where the department's going, right? It's a, I guess, younger-ish department. Fate's growth is taking off. They can see a future here. But I think it absolutely matters that, Chief and Captain Reagan and everybody, when they're talking to those applicants, they can tell them, hey, we just passed this bond that communicates that the community supports them, right? They've got good equipment, yada, yada, and some of them are coming from cities where they just did not have that. And so seeing that support, knowing they have that support both from the community, the city management, the city council, that can sway somebody's decision.
Perfect, yeah. A little bit more of a three-dimensional reason for coming. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Mr. Manival?
Yes. I'm pretty sure I know what this means, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. When we say cost for general government implementation 50%, does that mean that, say, a salary the range was 20 to 30,000? Does that mean 50% they would be at 25,000?
No. What it means is when you take all the survey data from those comp cities, we take the midpoint of the salary range, and we want our midpoint to be at 50%, so right in the middle of where those other cities' midpoints are.
Okay.
And then, because we do it based off we do the market position based off a midpoint rather than, and then we just calculate out then, I forget what the percentage is down, and that picks up the entry level and then what the max value of the position is.
All right. That's it.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Lee. All right, so we're going to continue with the recommended budget preview. So we get a little bit farther down since we last met almost a month ago. And so property tax is, of course, the most fun issue. The property tax, we are currently building the budget using the de minimis rate. And that is the 3.5%. Actually, it's a 3.5%, but it's 3.5% basically higher than the last year, but there's also a factor in there for $500,000 in total extra revenue. So it's a bit of a calculation, but we are using the de minimis rate that gives us, you saw that revenue increase from the prior year. We've got 800,000 roughly coming from kind of other sources, but 1.2 million of that roughly is from the de minimis rate usage. So that is currently what we have. All right, and we can come back to any of this stuff that you want to talk, any of these we want to come back to. Road maintenance, as we look at our road maintenance budget and our system of our roads increasing, and the quality that we want to get at, we want to start getting, and you've seen preventative maintenance and curb repairs and sidewalk repairs and 50/50 programs and all sorts of things going on. I saw some asphalt patching today. I think that was the state, but it might have been you guys. But, yeah, we've got patching going on. We're looking to try and improve our maintenance funding for our system to expand the life of that roadway network. The longer we can make that last, of course, the cheaper it is long-term. So we're looking to raise our maintenance funding another 500,000, keep marching that towards some bigger numbers. So we would go from 1.5 to 2 million, that's our contract services. We still spend roughly 500,000 on internal services and supplies and so forth, and we do some of our own work like crack sealing and so forth that we brought in-house. So it looks like we're going to be able to do that or most of that. Garbage rates, always sensitive because it's the bill. Waste Connections, we're anticipating a 3 to 5% increase in the contract price. And we are starting to get close to the end of that contract. We have an option period coming up. And so we'll be talking about that as we kind of get farther into the budget, whether we exercise that contract option or whether we go to bid. And so we'll get some opinions from some of the experts in that area and see how they're looking. Water rates, still good news. The rate study is in progress, but our own review of the water revenues and expenses looks good. So we don't anticipate a rate increase at this time. We will be required to get a new contract. It seems like just yesterday, but it was actually several years ago that we did the contract to install Pump Station 3. So as Pump Station 3 comes online, that is great. We've got a better contract than we had before. We've got a new water take point. But the Customer Cities Coalition, we talked about this last time, we've got this new template, and it further helps us with implementing that. But we've got to switch over to a new contract. So hopefully that will improve our condition and not necessarily hurt us. But we are using a lot of water as a city. We're using more than we anticipated, though we have good news that we're still in compliance with all the TCEQ regulations, and we are about to throw the switch on Pump Station 3 just in the nick of time for irrigations this season, and so we should be in good shape for water. But we will need to do a new contract. So all the customer cities will have to do contracts. There is an option not to do a contract, but there's a penalty. It starts to impact penalty provisions, and we'll have a rate consultant help us with figuring out how to structure that contract as far as where do we start that. And if it's against our interests, we can still stick with the current contract, but they may still require us to tweak some of the language. So water looks good, water and sewer. Public safety. So we've filled, I should say, it says filling, but we've filled actually all the authorized public safety positions. We've got the SRO in background, and we've got, so we're still technically filling positions. We've got the SRO officer in background that we're hiring for this upcoming school year, and we've got the detective that we're adding, the narcotics officer that we're still at some point going to turn on at some point. So we've got those in the budget. We're proposing adding 3 firefighters in fiscal year 26, which is roughly 330,000 plus gear. Interesting news, and we'll be talking about this at the upcoming council meeting. There is a FEMA Fire Administration Assistance to Firefighters grant, and we've applied for this in the past, not been awarded. Recent nearby departments have been successful in getting this grant. McLennan Chisholm got some. Rockwall Fire Department got quite a bit of money from this. So we've looked at the cost of applying for, and hold on to your seat for a second, 12 firefighters. So we've looked at what it would cost to put on essentially enough firefighters to fully staff the South Station and to add a crew essentially to the, not 24/7, but one crew to the main station. And so that would take about 12 personnel. And then, of course, we still have to plug the gap a little bit here and there, but that should as well take care of training, PTO, et cetera, et cetera. So we should be in pretty good shape. But we looked at side by side, year by year, how much would the grant pay versus 3 firefighters this year, 3 firefighters next year, 3 more firefighters. So basically adding 3 firefighters every year to build our fire cadre. And we've looked at that. As we lose DPS officers, we've got less and less of those triple certified folks. And one of your goals was to start separating the police and fire divisions, or creating those separate divisions. So that's happening kind of naturally. So we've looked at the total cost analysis for those next 4 years. And it is still cheaper to get the grant, and you'd get all those firefighters. We'd get them all up at the front. So we'll be bringing a resolution for your consideration, supporting a grant application to the feds for firefighter staffing. And we won't know whether we're going to get awarded the grant until after the budget. So when you see the budget that's delivered in July, it's actually not going to have the firefighters in there. But what we're going to do is, it is exactly the same amount of money for the matching funds for year 1. So you'll see in the public safety department, you'll see a line item for grant matching funds, and it'll have that full amount in there. If we don't get the grant, because we can't show we can't show FEMA that we're hiring people. We have to show them, hey, we've got matching funds, but you can't show them you're adding people, or they start freaking out. So what happens if we don't get the grant? If we get the grant, we've got matching funds. We get all the firefighters. We start hiring the firefighters. We've got matching funds to hire them on our share. If we don't get the grant, then we come back to you with we essentially change, we get permission, or we notify you, hey, we didn't get the grant. We're going to transfer those funds, and we're going to create 3 positions, essentially. So we'd kind of go with plan A would be the grant, and plan B would kind of be what we're doing right now.
So would that expedite the building of Southside Station?
I don't think it would. I think we're still on a pretty good, Chief, do you want to answer that question? I still think we're on a pretty good clip to finish the Southside Station. Definitely would put a little bit of extra fire under us, pun intended.
Well, that's exactly right. I think it would put us on a higher priority to speed things up, because right now we're leasing that building and kind of waiting for our architectural things to get done. Our original plan was to kind of start both construction kind of at the same time, but this might, because they would be in different stages anyway, as we don't have to do foundation work and building work, it's just a remodel, that we could speed that up. And so that is a very likely possibility. The one thing that we do have the truck room space in the current station, and so we could run a double company out of there, but we want to get our resources in the neighborhoods on the south side. So that is a high priority.
Okay. Yeah, I'm concerned because we have the bond money that if we don't use it sooner than later, that things just get more expensive and we get to build less and less as long as we hold on to the money.
Absolutely.
So, all right, thanks.
All right, and then also in the budget, we have, so far so good, we have the TMRS retiree COLA. We've got that at the current 70%. If we use the 70% on the front end, all these salaries kind of cascade benefits, so that would, it would be a little bit cheaper at the 50%. 366,000 is about our estimate, and the impact in the general fund is about that much, and roughly about half would go to DPS, which is consistent with our total salaries breakdown. All right, capital planning. The big projects next year, we alluded to that a little bit here, the DPS police station. We're expecting to get rolling and go to bid. Mid-May, finishing off that project. And these are partial fundings, of course, you can see. The police station that's the full amount, basically. The May, that should be what we expect to spend next year. Southside Fire Station remodeling. And of course, we've got, this is some good news, we've got some money in the road bond. So we've got a balance in the road bond. And we're looking at some downtown, maybe some downtown streets or a street, depending on what that looks like. So good news there. We've we've got some funds we can apply to a roadway reconstruction. And then Gettysburg to Blackland, finishing off that contract. That's about what we expect will be left to complete. And then, of course, the downtown fire station remodel. So those are all the big ticket items in the CIP. Some of those are debt with the bonds. Some of those are cash. Police station's debt, Miss May's cash, the South Side Station debt, road bond, that's older debt, Blackland older debt as well with the roads, and then downtown, that's debt as well. All right. The council budget. This has been kind of one of those controversial items, so we wanted to hit that really early. Traditionally, the way we've done, and we've got Mayor Megacy here with us, which is great, former Mayor Megacy. So what we've done for the last decade or so is the mayor and the manager got together and we kind of figured out nonprofit funding and what different events we want to go to, and we kind of put that all together. This year we wanted a little more participative process. I think Mayor Greenberg is kind of alluding to, hey, we want some more council involvement in some of these things. So what we wanted to do is kind of show you what we're looking at, and we really imported numbers from last year. We've got some things we want to show you. So we're at this level here. Supportive community services, there's really 2 line items in the council's budget, specifically that we give to nonprofits, and they have to perform a governmental service. You can't just pick a nonprofit that you like. They have to perform some sort of governmental type activity to make it eligible under the Constitution. And so here's some of the different, so in total 35,000, Meals on Wheels 15, Children's Advocacy Center we've got at 5, the Women in Need 5,000, Lone Star Casa 5, and the Boys and Girls Club 5,000. We've also invited the nonprofit folks to be here tonight, so we've got representation from each of these activities, and they all represent different functions. For example, a lot of it you'll see victims is kind of victim services, so related to public safety, victim services, coordination with the police department on various cases and so forth, crime prevention like Boys and Girls Club, and of course senior services. We also have supportive community events, so the Roy City Education Foundation, the Chamber. We've got, we are actually part of the City of Rockwall Youth Advisory Council, so we've got some FATE kids. We didn't want to stand up our own Youth Advisory Council, so back in the day we got some requests for FATE kids to participate, so we've got them over in Rockwall serving on that, and we get charged a very minimal amount for that. And then Meals on Wheels, we have different events, so you'll see different things like, hey, they're having a gala or they're having this fundraiser. Could you buy so many seats at a table, so forth. Similar with Helping Hands. So those are those, and I'll come back to those. We can talk a little bit about that. We want to get your input on that. And then we have the new revenue source from so every time you register your vehicle, you pay a vehicle registration. So there's a $1.50 charge that was added in the prior legislative session. So that $1.50 charge goes toward funds for essentially children's protection sort of activities. So we've got a balance in that fund. We've sent about $7,000 to the Children's Advocacy Center. Our plan is to distribute the rest of that balance to the Children's Advocacy Center, but we can change that based on input. And then, of course, I do have a new request that we've not put in the budget. The Rockwall County Historical Association is requesting support of all the different cities in the county, and they've asked for about a $10,000 share based on population for the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States, which is expected to be next year. So you'll see all sorts of activities. They're going to all the different governmental units asking for funds. So we've got that. We've not put that in the budget yet because we've not historically done that. Of course, it's kind of a, once and potentially a lifetime event. We'd have to figure that out, but it's not that much. So kind of going back, this is kind of the ongoing funding, and this is our current balance. Our annual amount's not that high. We're probably in the 20,000 roughly range. But it will rise. The more cars we have registered in the city, what the county does, the county collects the money, they stick it in different funds for the cities, and then they send it to the cities to distribute the funds. And there's various limited uses that I'll read you some of those here. So the way the law works, you can use it to enhance child safety, health, or nutrition, including child abuse prevention and intervention. You can use it for youth diversion and drug and alcohol abuse prevention. So those are the functions. So those any nonprofit acting on the city's behalf has to perform those functions, and then we're allowed to contract with them for that. All nonprofits provide an audit. They sign an agreement and so forth. So former City Attorney John Thatcher put all that process in place. All right, so.
I have one question.
Yes.
On that new funding,
Sorry. Yes.
how often are we getting that money?
We get quarterly disbursements from the county.
Okay, I just want, do you know what how much the most recent one or two was? That might give us.
Take a guess, Teresa? 7,000, let's say
6 to 7.
7,000.
Okay.
So do y'all want to talk a little bit about the, any of the items in the council budget? Meals on Wheels, their ask is the same as last year. I know a lot of our nonprofits are a little bit nervous about the federal budget and what's happening in different grant programs. So we've seen different things happening, but Meals on Wheels hasn't requested any additional money at this point. Oh,
I guess I have a question.
Margie is raising her.
Are these one-time contributions?
Oh, no, this page here that you're seeing, this is an annual budget. So they
So
receive.
we implement the use of those funds, or working with Meals on Wheels, or we're giving them the money to use?
Right, we have a contract with Meals on Wheels, so they provide support, for example, to our senior citizen, or senior service program. They provide a staff member. They organize actually and provide all the meals through their program for the senior center activities at the City of Fate. And this is Margie Verhagen.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Margie Verhagen. I'm the CEO and president of Meals on Wheels. But I just wanted to confirm, our request was the 15,000, but did you still want me to manage the center? That was an additional 11,000 that was awarded last year, and we took over all the financials for that, for reporting to the city.
Yeah, I was about to ask that same question because Vicki sent out a note today that said 15,000 for Meals on Wheels, 11,000 for.
The Fate Senior Program is its own line item, so it's not included in the support of community services, but it is included at the amount requested in the draft budget currently.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your
So I should
continued
have probably put that on there as well, so my mistake. But yeah, there's 11,000 that they directly run that, and then we give them an additional 15. And then we've got, if you're looking for everything for Meals on Wheels, there's also Meals on Wheels events in the support of community events line item.
Did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, so that 33,000 that we have, we gave some to CASA, right?
No, it all went, no, did not go to CASA, but went to the Children's Advocacy Center.
Okay. And where else are we giving to the Children's Advocacy Center? Is that in the 15, go back?
Yes.
That's in the 35,000?
We also give them, 5,000. Yes, they're there, top line.
So I guess I would question why we wouldn't spread that around to more than just one. I mean, if we're good at putting it at the Children's Advocacy Center, doesn't Lone Star CASA fall under children's help as well?
Technically, yes. Chief, do you have any opinion on that? Put you on the spot? Okay.
Boys and Girls Club has been approved by the county as an organization that.
Could you come to the microphone and introduce yourself, ma'am?
Sure, yeah. So at the county level, I'm Jenny Kruger, CEO, Boys and Girls Club, Northeast. At the county level, the Boys and Girls Club is also an organization that has been approved to receive some of these registration funds.
And I didn't mean to leave you off those. I was just asking if we could spread it around, like Meals on Wheels on that list, it seems to be the only one that, and maybe women in need that don't qualify. I don't know if that qualifies or not, but Children's Advocacy Center, Lone Star Casa, and Boys and Girls Club seem like they all would qualify for some of that money, right? Would there be a reason why we would give more to one than the other? Do we get more services from one than the other?
The only thing that would, that I would say is depending on how much DPS interacts with the various, I know we have a pretty intensive relationship with the Children's Advocacy Center as far as our investigation capabilities and so forth. So we probably do a lot more with them. That's kind of why we were defaulting to send sticker funds to them initially here. But we could spread it amongst the different in some sort of a formula. We could come, if you wanted to, we could come back and between Chief and I try to figure out a disbursement formula for the nonprofits.
I would like to understand, like, how much more do we use the CAC over Lone Star? Just
sure. And we've got
some detail into where those are going and what we're getting out of it. I would love to know. Plus, I'm sure a lot of people would as well.
I think my at least initial thoughts are, you know, I'm all for supporting all these organizations in the level that we have. And I know there's some questions from the public as far as should the city use tax dollars to give to charities, but these are all organizations that provide significant services for our citizens that the city does not provide. So a lot of other cities will provide services very similar to this, and our city doesn't do that. So there is in my mind, justification. I think my encouragement would be to figure out a way, if we were to keep Meals on Wheels where it is, to use the sticker funds in some sort of formula with the other organizations, because I believe those other organizations all can be justified from the sticker funds. So that's just my 2 cents. That would probably allow us to give a little bit more and support those organizations a little bit more, but it's based on incoming revenues as opposed to just a fixed amount out of budget. So it should be more easily offset.
I had a quick question. On the Meals on Wheels for the senior center for $11,000, does that include, are we charging anything for the use of that amenity center, or is that completely donated, or does that come out of that, or?
I believe we donate that for the.
Okay.
It's in-kind value.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Manival?
I really became aware of this as this line item on the budget, and that for some people, it's an issue at a candidate forum during the election season at fellow council member Cody Chin's home. And it got some strong reaction there. I was surprised there were a lot of people that have strong feelings about it. And so it hadn't really been an issue for me, but then I became aware later during the election season that there was a citizen who wanted to know some more detail on who the money was going to. And that citizen, I understand, had to do an open records request to get this information. Is that, my understanding is this was not public information a year ago. Okay, well, these seem like important things having to do with community engagement, the council and the city engaging with these organizations, and these organizations being known to do things that are important. And this was completely kept in the dark. And I think that's one reason that some people had an issue with it. And I guess, you know, looking at this and knowing these are things that benefit the citizens, a question I had before, I mean, I guess I could still ask this because it still could have been kept secret on the budget and still we could have done this. Are any of these websites or websites for any of these organizations on the supportive community services, are there any links or any directions to these organizations on the city's website?
Where's my website? There you are. Do you know? I don't think so. I don't think we directly link to any of these folks.
I don't believe for the nonprofits we directly link
Okay. Well, it just seems like it would be a natural. These are, you know, I may come to the conclusion these are vitally important, and if I believe they're vitally important, they ought to be on the website. So anybody in the city, and anybody in the city's tax dollars are going to these, they should know about them. And I guess another question might be, have they ever, I know there's all kinds of general information, have any of these ever been featured in the newsletter?
I know the senior program is always in the newsletter, but it's in the context of it. People don't kind of see who's operating it.
That's kind of a program that's a program of the cities.
Sure.
But there hadn't been any mention of any of these 5 on the newsletter.
No.
Okay. I guess, like I said, I understand this was not made to be public last year. Now it's public. It required an open records request, which is kind of boggles my mind that this kind of valuable spending, worthwhile spending, would be so secret.
And just on the secrecy part of it, I knew these were in the budget last year when we discussed them on council. One of the council members made a specific motion to remove part of these funds specifically out of the budget because of their non-support of the organization. So there were conversations around all this. As far as how transparent, it was probably just as transparent as the rest of the budget. It just gets lumped up into the masses, especially the masses of what the budget is, especially when we're considering we're talking about $40-some-odd thousand as opposed to in a $17 million budget. But I do know specifically that at least one council member made a motion to remove part of these funds that did not go through. So there was a time that was specifically discussed.
Well, I can answer part of that. Is that council member asked me because I knew the money was there. I'd found out because we use a program called OpenGov. There is a side of OpenGov that we can see that the public can't. You hit it, there's a drop down. You can see those particular numbers. There's an argument about transparency, and the council member called me and asked me how much we were giving to that particular one organization, and I gave them the number. I guess and that's the answer to that question. I guess what I'm being asked by the public is how these organizations, like I said, they are all wonderful. I am not knocking any of these things. These are desperately needed organizations in the community. I couldn't say one word against any of them. They're just absolutely awesome. The question I get from citizens is, who picks the organizations and why are other ones excluded? Rockwall Helping Hands gives medical. We can't give medical to people who are unable to afford it. They want to know why some are picked, some aren't. I don't have the answers to those questions. Who picked these? Why are they on there? I'm gonna let a cat out of the bag. There's a previous member of this council is on one of the boards on there. That's against the charter. It's absolutely against the charter. I'm not saying that there's any corruption on there, but that person should have recused themselves from any budget votes on that. I'm just saying that is a matter of fact. Why are we picking some? Why are we picking others? I'm not saying we knock any of these things off and then add other ones on. I'm just making that point of there. This is what people ask me is why are some picked and some aren't? And is that a discussion we need to have? Maybe, I don't know, on there. But you brought up how one council member knew. They knew because they asked me. They couldn't read the software. So.
My point was, it was out there and it was discussed.
And that's understandable. That's fine.
We actually had the same presentations from all of the community support services came last year during the budget process and gave the same presentation that they have given before. So the presentations were there. We had a slideshow just like this as well. So,
Martha?
And I want to sort of follow through with, yes, I encourage feedback from the public about the institutions being proposed to support, But also, if we choose these, it would be great if it was more than just money. Promote the organizations on our website, like you mentioned, whether or not there's a link, but also advertise events that they have going on. So partnering with them with more time and money, an opportunity for people to help volunteer there. So really, really supporting it more than just a donation.
Rick, did you have, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I was going to say, as far as whether this was discussed, I came to a number of council meetings last year, but I wasn't at all of them. And, I don't know what's considered keeping things sort of quiet or secret or what, but I do know that last 3 months ago, March or April, there was a citizen who wanted to know what these were and simply was directed, or the only way they could get it was to do an open records request. And I don't think we would have fulfilled an open records request if we could have just told the person, oh, it's this, this, and this, or you could find it on this page of the website. I don't think we would have had to go through that. So for some reason, at some point, somebody didn't want to tell a citizen what it was. So,
well,
anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Rick. I guess too, if we have this new sticker fund money now that's going to be allocated, one of the things that I think would be good to see, and I would like to see too, especially as Mr. Harper brought up about why is all of it going to one place instead of maybe being more, and I don't mean evenly dispersed like it always has to be even, is because I'm looking at it and I'm going, man, I mean, what does 5,000 really do in a year now? Is that something where, oh yeah, we're meeting this much of a need that we have in our city, but if we were to double that, we would meet this much of a need. If these organizations are providing these services, I think it would be beneficial to know what current level they're able to achieve in our city of those services provided, and then is more money beneficial? Is it something where we're at kind of maximum efficiency? More money doesn't necessarily mean anything more because it's however that formula works. So I would, if that can be obtained, I would love to see some information on that so that we could see not only with the new funding where that's going, but to make sure we're keeping up with inflation, to make sure that we're keeping up with all those variables.
Right, and
Anything else?
We've got some information from from groups. I know we got a big report from Boys and Girls Club, and then of course everyone's got great information and stats should we need it. So I think we'll get if it's okay with y'all, Chief and I and Vicki will put this together. We don't want to spend an inordinate. I mean, we don't spend enough time on it, but since it's only it's of course less than $100,000, we don't want to spend too much time on it. But we want to make sure we do. We make sure we do a good job with making a recommendation on that.
And to Martha's point, I think she brought up a good point there, is the promotion of these. It might not be a lot of money, but what I would say that the services provided for our community is priceless. And so I think that obviously there's some confusion. Some people don't necessarily know this, that, and the other. It would be great to kind of use this as an opportunity to all get on the same page for it moving forward. All right, any other questions on that agenda item? Okay.
All right. Before we leave that one, is there any thoughts on the 250 celebration? I was going to include that somewhere, but we wanted to get your input before we did it, just because it's a new request. We never had to deal with it before.
Are we pretty sure that's next year? Did you check the calendar? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're good. We're good with that one.
Okay. All right. So we'll add that to our try to figure it out amount. Okay. One more. This is not. It's. This would be a budget amendment, possibly depending on the timeline. But we are talking about an MD sales tax bond. So this would appear depending on the timeline of the bond sale, which we'd get with our financial advisory team. And next week, you're going to see some updated pictures of the new food hall, Fate Station Park. This would be for Fate Station Park, kind of finish out that park, complete it, It would have everything it's supposed to be for not only the kind of permanent location of the food hall, but all the downtown activation, and also eventually when the trail comes in, you'd have everything ready for kind of you'd build out that trailhead. Essentially, you'd have everything you needed there. You'd have bathrooms, you'd have additional parking, all that stuff. Plus, you'd have some supportive food activities. So we've run these numbers, and we could possibly have a couple years of overlap, but that's kind of what we're thinking. We want to just let you know that we're headed that direction. There'll be much more discussion with you all, with MDD, because this would be an MDD sales tax bond. We've also got to figure out a way to maintain the park, because some cities are infamous for putting in parks, and then we all estimate, and to some extent we've done this too, we underestimate maintenance responsibilities and what it costs to fix things when people break them or graffiti, et cetera. So we want to talk with MDD about ongoing maintenance revenue. So the way it works with MDD is if you have the MDD do a debt issuance and build it, or if you build it with cash, if you're able to build a facility, let's say a park with MDD, then you're allowed to maintain it with MDD funding. So that's kind of a little booster that doesn't have to hit the taxpayers for the maintenance of that facility. And then there'd be some private-public partnerships potentially that could bring some cash to the table to knock down the bond amount. Or we could have enhancements and so forth. So we're still early in the process. Matt's here. He's been working. We've talked to the parks. I believe we talked to the Parks Board, or we're planning on talking to the Parks Board on this as well. And so a lot of work to be done still, but we want to watch your faces and see what you think.
I'm on council member on the MDD board, and we haven't had much of a detailed discussion of this yet. So will the decision to do this be an MDD decision?
Yes, it's got to be approved by the MDD, and then the council would have to approve whatever that is.
Okay.
Can I get a copy of what it looks like now?
Maybe if I could, just because I've been in touch with our designer. We did show the MDD. There were some quick changes we knew we needed to make based on what they showed us. They're in the middle of making those updates right now.
Okay.
So we don't want to release so our thought has been to not make a big release of something that we know is going to change quickly. There's some more shade that we want to add in there. There's some colors that they use that we know won't be the colors we probably go with. So Spencer with Park Hill is in the middle of the updates right now. We should have those shortly. And in our next council meeting, we plan to present those.
Okay.
Yep.
So, as it relates to a bond through sales tax, repaid through sales tax from MDD funds, we've also had a recent economic development deal that we're using some of the MDD sales tax to help support. And so what potential mix of use of that revenue are we looking at? And is that just going to be thrown out through the MDD budget as X percent is going to support the debt on the bond, X percent is going to support the economic development deal, X percent is going to support the rest of it? We've been talking about MDD tax money a lot lately, it seems like, and I want to make sure the resources are there to fulfill the commitments that we've talked about.
Okay, Matt or Raju, or both of y'all, you want to talk a little bit about how the MDD budget's looking as far as how you see this? I know you've worked with finance and Stephen quite a bit on.
Yeah, Raju maybe can answer this more, better for you, Scott, but less than 50%. So and we looked at, and Rick, this is prior to you being elected and joining the MDD board, but we did review a potential spreadsheet that showed a bond of, I think it was nearly $10 million in borrowing capacity. So when you look at this type of stuff, it's sort of like going into a lending officer's office and saying, how much can I borrow for my house? And $2 million. And you go, whoa, I don't need that much, But so, yeah, I think we could support something like 10 million. And so we can do both. The economic development 380 agreements is covered, as well as this 4.3. And that's assuming we went with the full 4.3 and didn't use cash anywhere and didn't use any type of sponsorship or anything like that. So is that good? Okay.
Oh, Matt, real quick. Matt. Real quick. Is this 4.3 include all wish lists, everything? Is this all inclusive?
Yeah, so this is knocking out the whole thing. So this, to me, it's the three parts to it. There's the food hall section, there's the entertainment part, which is a stage and a lawn, and then there's sort of the children's, the traditional park, adding to that as well. So it's all three of those. Now, keep in mind, this is high level, right? This is not design, but this is the high level master plan of the whole thing. And so when you start digging into individual details, there are probably areas we can add to and other areas we can take away from to adjust. But that's where we're at right now. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That would be activating the entire park and everything that was in the concept.
Does this include any kind of sound system or anything for the stage?
Yeah, it's
all of that kind of stuff, all inclusive?
Yeah, it's a full stage and everything
Lights,
included. Yeah, so
Jumbotron?
When we start getting into all of those details, like that's where it's like they just kind of throw a number at it and say, generally, here's a number. So when we dive into the actual design of that stage and the components, that's when you start to say, all right, we're going to do a projector. Are we going to do built-in sound? Are we just going to do amplification and no? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see what all it includes, it throws in there. I mean, it's a big number.
Maybe if I could, the 4.3 is the opinion of probable cost. So this is what they assume it might cost. That builds a 20%, they threw in a 20% contingency. They also threw in a 1 year of inflation and what may happen, given that we won't build probably for a year. So it's the best they can do to give us the amount that they don't think we would exceed, barring big changes that we may see and say, oh, well, what if we did? And then all of a sudden that cost can start to escalate really quickly. Generally, when you show this, the costs don't get cheaper. The more you show it, the more costs go up.
No, they showed me the plan and I probably added 150 or 200,000 to it.
But it is,
You know there's things that are missing.
yeah.
Just
Yeah,
got the
and that's
parking
what they're
lot?
just adding to. Again,
There's a lot more
when we
parking,
release these
yes.
renderings, we want them to be a pretty good representation of the feedback that we've started to hear from our MDD board. The other thing I would say, the 4.3 is total cost. We anticipate bringing some park fees money to this too, so that won't all be bonded against with the MDD. And then, as Michael did say, we have a $150,000 bond payment that falls off, I think, next fiscal, not the budget year we'll be adopting soon. The next budget will be the last year that the $150,000 payment, that will drop off, creating some room. Obviously, funds continue to grow, and as Councilmember Kelly represented with Project Cactus and the incentive there, while we only get 50%, it's all new money that we're not getting currently, so that will grow the capacity for us to bond as well. Yeah, so that's kind of the outlook on that park as well.
Is there a time frame on, by the time we think the shovel will go into the ground to the time it'll be done?
I mean, I think, what do they say? Is it 6 months of design before? Yeah, so if we move forward with this thing, there's 6 months of design, it's probably a 12-month construction process, so 18 from the go point.
Okay.
And if I could too, just for any of the public that may be watching, this bond is paid for out of existing sales tax money being received by the municipal development district. This will not be any tax increase on any residents.
Does this include the parking lot we talked about last week?
This, not the one behind Fate Grocery. That's a separate project, budgeted separately, but it does include maybe 40 to 45 additional spaces on the existing parking lot to the east of Sauce and Vine, so that'll extend that all the way north.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Plus a lot of access for handicapped people and disabled and elderly people.
There's a lot of flat work in this design. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
I think if I could too, I was surprised just because, for Scott and Steve who've looked at this too, they weren't a surprise because they work in this world every day, but the amount of utility work that's included in this, the electric work,
some drainage.
Drainage, significant amount of money that you will never see because it's all underground, but it's what it requires to make it work, so.
Oh, it was brought up to me, is it being considered that for electronic interference, for audio, with the electrical cables that are in that area?
Haven't gotten to that much level of detail, but it's a fair point.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it is something that Rick mentioned, I know to you, Rick mentioned us as well. That is something that we're working with our designers on.
Yeah, and why, maybe no one's asking this question, but why MDD involvement here? This drives people an activity downtown that benefits the business owners in the area. So they are all, of course, interested in seeing this. I mean, every little thing that we do that brings people downtown helps increase sales tax and helps all of those small businesses. So when you activate something on a consistent basis, hey, we got the farmer's market once a month, we have a concert 4 or 5 times a month, we have events going on two times a month. You add all that up, it's just an immense amount of traffic. It creates that cultural center that we're all looking for, but then it drives the sales tax. Good.
Thank you. All right.
All right, so we can go back and talk about anything you like. Of course, we'll just keep going at this rate if you like. Wrapping up. So the budget calendar, here we are, June 23rd. We're in the special meeting. In a couple 3 days, we're going to have the final draft of the capital improvement plan that we'll start digesting and getting that assembled. And then July 17th is the big day. That's when we'll post the notice. We'll file the proposed budget around that time. I think typically it's that Friday, Friday, whatever that Friday is, so it might be 17th or 18th. And then, of course, we'll post the budget, the capital improvement information. We'll have public hearings and so forth, get all that stuff. OpenGov will be open for the public. The council will get essentially budget builder access to OpenGov. We've contacted OpenGov about some training on how to use it. We haven't gotten anything back from them yet, but we'll keep on chasing them. So yeah, all that stuff starts to take place in mid-July. And then our little things in front of it, but essentially just right below July, let's call it the, say again? July 21st. So we've got but you basically get the audit, that we're on the track. We're on this meeting after meeting track for approval. So, and we eventually get down to August 18th, which is our target for adoption of all the various documents. So we've got basically a solid month of activity with a maximum detail for all the different pieces that are out there.
Quick question. What section of this budget puts the sidewalk in on Rochelle Road?
Excellent question. We're looking at what that would cost. That's a great question, because we have money in Public Works to do street work. We have money for a 50-50 program, but we don't necessarily have any sort of and we've got money in our trails program in the park fees that are, if you've got a trail on the park fee, but we don't have like put in a giant drainage. We're talking about like putting in a giant drainage pipe and then putting essentially a sidewalk over top. So you've got to make sure the drainage pipe is properly sized, it's properly sloped at the right elevation, is a certain, and then of course fill it, put a sidewalk over top. So it could be a significant cost, but we don't really have anywhere in the budget. Does someone else know somewhere where we might be able to fund it? But we don't really have a sidewalk construction street improvement budget like that. The only place you could possibly do it is, and I think it would probably be legal, is we've got some leftover bond funds in the street department or in the bond. So it wouldn't be necessarily a street widening, but it's a street improvement, so it'd probably be eligible for those bond funds.
So is there an average cost per, like you had a cost for roads that per
linear mile. Mm-hmm.
Is there an average cost for sidewalks?
Yes, but in this case, this is going to be more of a drainage project with a sidewalk as a byproduct. Because we've got those ditches, they were describing those ditches. If y'all have been out to Rochelle Road, it's, open bar ditch designed for drainage. So one of those segments we'd have to pipe. We probably couldn't pipe both of them, but we could probably pipe one of them. But yeah, we'd have to figure out where we want to pay for that. So we're getting in, Public Works is going to work up an estimate, and then we'll have to get with the city engineer and see what that would cost. But it could be 6-figure for a small amount of sidewalk.
Dead kids don't have a price, so I'd rather find out what it costs to put a sidewalk.
Absolutely. We love walkability, and if y'all have been out here, I know from time to time we see folks, we've got a sidewalk on this side of CD Boren, but there's no sidewalk on there. So we've got kind of a hole in the sidewalk system on the north side. And we've seen so many people go through the muck. I think one lady went through there in a stroller, and then she got stuck with the baby in the stroller she was trying to navigate through the mud. I've watched an older couple walk to the end of the sidewalk, look around, look at the traffic going across CD Boren at City Hall, and basically say it's not worth trying to cross the street because it's too dangerous, and they just walk back. So we've got gaps in the sidewalk system, and I think anytime we can fill a gap in the sidewalk system, it's just, we can see all this activities take place. So we're going to try and see if we can figure out how we can do some of these different gaps. We've also got, the planning department showed us something today with the GIS that if we could figure out a way to get a sidewalk across the railroad track, we've talked about this, we've talked about this forever. If we could connect Wood Creek to downtown, there are, I don't know, is there thousands of homes? 4,200 homes could walk to downtown, but there's no way across that little segment between where the sidewalk ends in Wood Creek and downtown. So, and then of course we talked about the bridge and the railroad. Maybe we build a couple connections there and let people figure out how to get across. So there's gaps and opportunities to put sidewalk and to improve walkability and health in the community. We'd love to start attacking some of that. So it's a good project. Well, we'll see if we can figure it out.
Yeah, my concern is more about that piece that they need to get to school. I mean, I understand we can't put sidewalks all the way down Rochelle, but this is kind of a chicken and the egg.
It's just a small little segment. We don't necessarily have to go all the way down to the bottom of the neighborhood. We just have to connect the top street, get it up to where they can get across, and then figure out a crosswalk of some sort.
So I want to get back to the budget and just kind of reset and try to simplify especially for our newer members, because I know early on it's very overwhelming, but currently you are operating, setting the budget at the de minimis rate, which is essentially the maximum we can go to without voter approval. So with that, the effect of that is a tax increase on our citizens. So we need to be clear on that. It has been the policy of the council for the last 5 years, at least, that I can think of, that we've operated off the de minimis, because we are de minimis rates, because we are a growing city. We've got growing needs for growing staff. Our DPS has been traditionally underfunded and understaffed. Before the last year or two, DPS would not have been able to respond to 2 different incidents in town appropriately and effectively. So the city does have needs over and above what our base tax rate would provide for with no tax increase. But I want to make sure everybody's clear from the get-go that this that we're talking about is a tax increase. Michael laid out very clearly in the stuff that he's adding with the increase to road maintenance, with the DPS staffing increase, with the market adjustments to salaries. Just with those alone, that takes up essentially the full de minimis amount. Well, and with the retirement fund too, adding some money to that. So if the council as a whole is going to have an issue with this, we probably need to start speaking up in the next 2 to 3 weeks to Michael, as far as I'm not comfortable with that. And I'm just pulling numbers off the top of my head. Teresa's the expert and can spit them out before I get them out of my mouth. But the de minimis rate is adding an extra $500,000 to the 3.5% rate. So the de minimis rate's adding $1.2 million to our budget. If I saw the numbers correct, it's adding about $1.2 million.
Yes.
If we went with the standard non-approved, voter-approved 3.5% increase, that's going to be about a $700,000 increase. And then de minimis is giving us an extra $500,000 on top of that.
Let's check that number.
So
Teresa and Raju, the difference between the de minimis and the 3.5 wasn't it like 350 roughly?
I thought you said 500. You give us an extra 500,000.
So it gives us, it's complicated.
Okay.
Yeah, it's complicated, but
so what
about 350.
300,000,
340,000, 350 is the difference between the 3.5.
okay. Okay. But my point here, especially for the new members.
That's the fire, like, that's the firefighters.
We're absolutely talking about a tax increase here with the way Michael and staff are operating. And if we're gonna have problems with that, we really need to start talking about that pretty quick, because it's a lot of work to take $100,000 out of the budget. It's a lot of adjustments everywhere. So it's better to have these conversations now than it is when we get the full budget in July, when we're looking at August approvals. So I'm not saying we have to make a decision tonight. All I'm saying is that we need to think about it. Well, when we have our next conversations, we need to make sure staff's running down the right road, as opposed to having them try to make adjustments in August when we're pushing some deadlines.
I guess that's what makes it more critical for them to get their logins as soon as possible, so they can go over last year's budgets and see the changes in this year's budgets.
You just mentioned that. I wasn't, well, as far as I know, I don't have access to OpenGov yet. Is that right? I don't think.
It usually comes right at when the budget's released.
Okay. Well,
So we do have it on the website, so everyone can see everyone can get into OpenGov. It is tricky to use from the website, but what you're not going to see is, what the public doesn't see is like the notes function, so the little breakdowns. So
I don't think I have access to that, any of that yet.
I think the regular OpenGov is on the web, all that's open on the website right now. Last year's, or the current budget that we're in is on the website. But, and you also, of course, the best thing is, of course, the old-fashioned hard copy, which y'all have a hard copy, I believe. That's actually the best, because it really, you can do some things with the website. You can kind of do your own comparisons and make your own graphs, but the real value is in the document itself.
Okay, I'm about to show my true ignorance to this process, but you're labeling the tax rate de minimis, and but what does that equate to, the actual tax rate? So for instance, I mean, this year's City of Fayette tax rate is 0.259245. Is there a rate we're looking at right now with this proposed?
Yes, so we've got the, Tracy, Roger, why don't we all come up? We've got the DPS, so this is the year we have to add the DPS bond. So on the interest and sinking side, the debt side, we have the DPS bond payment starting. And then we have on the operations side, we have so they combine to a total of, we'll hear for a second here.
Yeah, this year we have 25 cents. That is going to be about 29 cents for FY26.
Okay.
But again, that's additional 4 cents of that is from the DPS bond.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, do we know what's the difference in the tax rate between the de minimis and do you think it's a cent? It's about 1 cent, the difference between let's say the 3.5. Because about 350, that's about a cent.
So the rate is about 0.296 cents at the moment with the information we currently have from the CAD. Out of that, 2.6 is the DPS bond piece, and about a cent is what would be the actual increase in the rate, 1 cent, in addition to the DPS bond.
Again, the only reason I wanted to say that is because, especially for the newer members, just wrap your heads around it, because the argument is, what are the needs of a growing city and what do we need to do? If you look at the efficiency of staff, I know Michael gave a presentation on that earlier. We're operating at about 3.5 staff members per 1,000 citizens, which is well below what other cities our size operate at. And you can always look at everything in the budget and find ways to cut $10 here, $1,000 here. There's always ways to be more efficient, but our staff operates very efficiently in what they do, and we operate a very, very lean budget. But again, if we're talking about a tax increase, it's a serious conversation, and we need to be we need to make sure we understand it and we're comfortable with it. So, again, it's been the policy of the council over the last 5 years that we've had to have these funds to be able to take care of our growing needs. The good news is, at least within ideally the next 24 months, we're going to see significant increases in sales tax that should more than offset the impact of permit fees in our revenue sources that we're talking about. So with the investments we're making in economic development agreements in our downtown areas, in 18 months, we ought to be in really great shape. But it's the pain points in between and the conversations we've been having over the last 4 or 5 years. This is really kind of that year where permit fees start decreasing as a revenue source.
Oh, actually, not yet.
Not yet? Is it next year now?
We're forecasting residential permits to be down, however, commercial permits to be up.
Going up.
And so that trend, we think, is what's happening now. That'll go into next year as well. So we're actually looking at a slight increase in permitting fees. But yes, as we kind of flip that switch off where the residential starts coming down and the commercial starts coming up. Of course, there's other opportunities to do more infill as well, and to do revenue positive and kind of very quaint and nice walkable infill. That'll also make money.
And then as questions come up, and you look through last year's budget and understand what the council at that time was looking at, and as staff starts putting out the budget, I strongly encourage you to ask all the questions in the world through Michael and Stephen and team to get those answered. They've been extremely responsive, and essentially it feels like they have to shut down almost everything else. Everything else gets done, but July really becomes all budget all the time. So Raju and staff do an amazing job and know the numbers inside and out. And so it's just balancing the needs of a growing city and figuring out what we need to keep the streets safe, to keep our citizens safe, and keep everything moving.
If I could share one thing, Michael, just for especially new council members, this de minimis rate, background that you may all already know. De minimis rate is only allowed to cities under 30,000 people. We anticipate probably hitting that in the next year. I mean, Councilmember Chin, I think, referenced in a previous meeting that this may or may not, but maybe the last year we even have that opportunity. So the state gives you this window for a de minimis rate, but essentially what they say is, hey, when you hit 30,000, you should be able to have other revenue sources supporting your needs, or else you haven't done what cities do. And luckily, we see Project Cactus and other things coming online that really allow us to have those other revenue sources when this one is no longer an option to us. And so the state's created this window. Our economic development team and planning team and all those that have kind of prepped the course forward for us on commercial and sales tax have done, frankly, a dang good job to set us up to be in a situation that when the de minimis falls as even an option to the city, we have these other revenue sources coming on. And as Michael mentioned, when we're no longer able to rely on building permit, we have these other revenue sources coming on. So everything really is timing well for us to be able to utilize the revenue sources allowed to us, and then hopefully be able to continue to grow that commercial base to be able to provide those revenue sources that we need moving forward post 30,000 population.
And technically, we could still use the de minimis after 30,000 because you'd rely on the census, the next census, and then once you get the results from the next census. But if we nominally hit with our water accounts or different other census COG estimate, their planning has done some estimates. So we do hit 30,000, and y'all want to say, hey, we're 30,000, we should probably not use this anymore, then hopefully we'll be in a good shape to be able to do that.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments, discussion from council? Okay. Ms. Vicky, what's our next item, please?
Next will be item number 5, adjournment.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second. Please vote. I think it is if it's. All right, passes 6-0. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.